So Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome. We'll begin with Yedid Nefesh. Sorry, it's a little out of tune. So as I mentioned in the email, this is always one of the hardest Shabbats of the year, just because I all of a sudden lose, 2 hours when it comes to doing this service, as well as an hour when it comes to the actual sunset. So it takes a little time. So we'll continue now with we'll begin our service with Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome as we then go into the rest and relaxation of Shabbat. We think about all that we've accomplished over this last week so that we can enter into it with a feeling of having accomplished something. And so it's always about finding that one thing that we're able to be proud of, that we take with us into this day of rest. So we use that to bring us to a place of giving thanks with L'chunu Ranina. We'll continue with Or Zavua La Tzadik. Or Zavua La Tzadik, Ulehi Sheleb Simcha. Or Zavua La Tzadik, Ulehi Sheleb Simcha. Simchu Tzadikim Adonai, Behudu Lezechet Kodsho. So we'll continue as we rise for Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, Avul Adonai b'nelim, Avul Adonai kavod, Avul Adonai kehod shemo, Yishach Avul Adonai b'harav kodesh, Kol Adonai ha'amayim, El HaKavod Yirim, Adonai Mayim Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'koach, Kol Adonai B'Hadar, Kol Adonai Shover Harazim, V'Shaber Adonai Et Azei Ha'Lamon, V'Yakidem Kemo Ega Lebanon, B'Sirion, Kemo, B'Neinim, Kol Adonai Tosef Lachodesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai V'Kadesh, Kol Adonai Echol Elai Yavon, Yecheso Ye'avon, Ye'avon, U'echavon, Kulo, 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 U'mekavon, Adonai Rama, V'yashav, V'yeshev Adonai, Melech Elam, Adonai Yod, V'yam lo yitein, Adonai Yivarech et Amo Lashem. So next we'll welcome in the sense of peace with Lecha Dodi, the peace of Shabbat, as we welcome the image of the Sabbath bread. Lecha Dodi Likakala, Ele Shabbat Nekabela, Shamu Vezachu Bedibo Echad Bishmiyanu, El HaMeyuchad Adonai Echad, Ushmo Echad B'Shem Utiferet. Chadodi Likakala Meneshava Mekabela Ina Ave Meafakumi Lipshibike Tipatechami Ayarish Parsi Venismecha Benagila Lechadodi Likakala Beneshava Mekabela Itori Kiva Ore Kumi Uri 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 Shida Bevi Kevoda Nunai Alai Nigla Lechadodi Likakala Meneshava Mekabela Lo Devoshi Velo Tikami Ma Vishochachi Umatemi Vachechasu Ani Ami Vemipneta Iratila Lechadodi Likakala Beneshava Mekabela Behayulim Shisa Josayif Berachakuko Behalayich Esis Alayich Elohayich Kimsos Chata Matanakala Mecha Goli Likakala Beneshava Mekabela Gaminusmo Difroti Bet Adonai Davisi Hayadish Empati Benismecha Benagila Lecha Godi Likakala Beneshava Mekabela. We'll rise and face the entrance. Glory v'shalom Aterabala Grande Simcha Uven Sala Dochamune Amsegula Boli Chala Boli Chala Lecha Goli Likakala Beneshava So we'll continue with Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Yatam Melech Adon, Lechol HaShalom. Yatam Melech Adon, Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. V'tov einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Wonderful. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining or for watching on YouTube later. This week we're reading Parshat Lech Lecha, really the Torah portion where we're introduced to Abraham and his family. And as we're reading the last third this year, our reading begins with the story of Hagar, Sarah's maidservant that after Sarah's infertility, that she offers as a wife to Abraham in order to produce an heir that Sarah hopes, will essentially be, her adopted child, to then pass on their line. But this is then also a story of unintended consequences. That Sarah begins by saying, perhaps, through this concubine that becomes Abraham's wife, that Sarah herself would be built up. And yet, after Hagar becomes pregnant, it shows this conflict between Sarah and Hagar. Hagar is cast out, and it's only then this divine intervention of a visiting angel that encourages Hagar to return to the household. Ultimately, she gives birth to Ishmael, and as we read on Yom Kippur, ultimately having the reemergence of that conflict, Ishmael and Hagar are then cast from the camp, even as we then read later how Ishmael does become the leader of many nations and tribes. So even as it works out, we still see this core of a conflict. But when we look deeper at the rabbinic interpretations of the story, we see more of those unintended consequences. That in describing Hagar as being an Egyptian, that the story of Genesis Lech Lecha begins with Abraham and Sarah going down to Egypt and then coming back up, having achieved great wealth there. That it imagines that Hagar was actually the daughter of Pharaoh, that she was an Egyptian princess, and that Pharaoh, wanting to essentially give his daughter, the best life possible, imagined that it was going to be better to essentially be a servant in Abraham's household rather than being a princess in Egypt. When I read that this morning, in my head was, the line from Milton's Paradise Lost of this sort of, opposite rhetoric where, Satan says it's better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. That really Pharaoh was describing the opposite. That it was better for Hagar to essentially just be part of this household rather than having power. But instead of having this be a source of learning, this chance to be able to, experience this unbounded blessing, instead, Hagar's presence was this constant source of pain and conflict. And so we see, even within the text itself, this sense of really playing the blame game. It's the question, that as it says that, Sarah was sort of lowered in the eyes of Hagar, was the source of the conflict, that Hagar was, sort of haughty and mean to Sarah. Or was it just the natural jealousy that Sarah, in seeing Hagar express the joy that she was going to have a child, felt that as this pointed attack against her. Also, as we read it, especially with our own modern lens, is the question of, was Sarah's plan doomed to fail? Was she really expecting, human nature or was she expecting everyone's nature to go against themselves? To essentially have this connection and this hope between Hagar and Abraham. Was it ignoring that would become a true connection? And so in the story, Sarah blames Abraham. That she really says that this is your fault and that it's your responsibility to then fix it, which is surprising. Why would it be Abraham's fault? What was he supposed to have done differently? And so, as Avadia Sforno, one of the medieval Italian commentators, describes how, at least what Sarah imagines that Abraham should have done, is that he should have stood up. That even as Sarah was, still had not had the chance to, become pregnant and give birth to a child, that he should have ensured that Sarah continued to have this honored place within the household. And with that, we can compare perhaps this narrative with another one, the story of Penina and Hannah that we read on the morning of Rosh Hashanah. That there we see another situation of a man with two wives. One is able to give birth, the other remains barren. But it's very clear that Elchanan in having a deep love for Hannah, who had no children, went out of his way, to make sure that she felt honored in the household. But of course, when we read that story, we see how just the sense of loss and the emptiness of the infertility still means that, that essentially that love is really not enough to make up for that sense of rivalry. And so when we look at the story, I think we're able to see this frustration of having this essentially, attempt of assigning blame when it's going to be impossible to truly identify, what went wrong. But despite that, I think we are able to still learn a few lessons. That as we see this attempt of passing the blame around, we're able to recognize that perhaps it is something that's shared. And that advice of Sforna, even as we have our other narratives that show that, if Abraham had acted differently, that there would still have been conflict. It's a reminder that all of us need to follow actions that reflect a good and deeper character. Perhaps if everyone had been more respectful and understanding, you can imagine that this wouldn't have been as much of a conflict. This year for Mechon Hadar, a learning institution that I attended, Rabbi Tali Adler is writing their weekly Torah commentaries, and she really noted that in some ways the hope that we have in this story, was that it would have been the type of love that would have gone against human nature. That being able to sort of have Ishmael be treated as this heir, of having it be this sort of added love of Sarah adopting him, within this household. And of course, it wasn't meant to be. Human nature can get in the way. But as we, are of course living in more divided times, one where it's this feeling that, whether it's politics or just the world itself with the rise of anti-Semitism, that we see almost this immediate jump to conflict. That I think we're able to see the story as the hope that when we do have leaders who are able to stand up with a sense of courage and morality and strong character, and to be able to put forward a vision of what it means to treat everyone respectfully, that it is that hope and perhaps that impossible challenge that we're then able to live in a world that will minimize some of those conflicts. And so I hope as we're able to engage in the Torah this week, that it helps to give us that path forward for a world where we are able to build it off of understanding and mutual care, rather than anger. And so I will continue with Misha Barak, our prayer for healing. Physical and spiritual healing, of course, we're living in a time of fear, and the disturbing actions, really the attacks against the Israeli and Jewish fans at the soccer match in Amsterdam, show that, of course, even as our primary thoughts are with the hostages in Gaza, that we constantly have these moments where it feels like just anti-Semitism is becoming more strident, more angry, more dangerous around the world. And so we'll continue with our prayer Achenu, both praying that the hostages are able to go from a place of darkness to light, and that Jews all around the world are able to go from a place of distress to a place of comfort. Achenu kol bet Yisrael, Achenu kol bet Yisrael, Hanetunim betzara, betzara ubashivya, haonim bebaya, ubebaya basha. Amahakom yirachem, yirachem alehem ve'yotziem mitzara. Yirachem u'me'afel ale'ohem, mishivu ye'ula hashta, ba'gala So this week in our Har El community, we are remembering Marcus Rutner, father of Vivian Gershman, Dudley Coulthard, father of Lorna Kringle, Morris Ross, father of Hy Ross, Giselle Loomer, mother of Neil Luma, Gina Grunberger, mother of Evelyn Amar and Jane Shadley, Ethel Sachs, mother of Alan Sachs, Bunny Cooper, mother of Joanne Cooper, Vito Gallianis, husband of Marcy Gallianis, Betty Epstein, mother of Barry and Eddie Epstein, Rebecca Berkman, mother of Raziel Ross, Hugo Wallersteiner, grandfather of Ulrika Wallersteiner, Irene Hasman, mother of Les Hasman, and Esther Malka Devora Yuspe, mother of Al Yuspe. We pray that their memory may be for a blessing as we continue to evoke the end of Mourner's Kaddish with Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom Lemrama, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, El Kol Yisrael, Vehimehu, Vehimehu, Amen. Uyaseh Shalom, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'el Kol Yisrael, Uyaseh Shalom, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'el Kol Yisrael, Uyaseh Shalom, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'el Kol Yisrael, Uyaseh Shalom, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'el Kol Yisrael, Uyaseh Shalom, Uyaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'el Kol Yisrael, V'yimeru, V'yimeru, Amen. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you everyone for joining, whether you're in the Zoom room or watching later on YouTube. So we'll have services tomorrow at 10 a.m. and afterwards we'll have a light Kiddush, or Kiddush sponsored by George and Slavika. I'm not quite sure what the website was or what the newsletter was trying to say. But then, so looking further ahead, the rally to call for release to hostages continue at the Art Gallery on Tuesday. And then a week from Sunday, Sunday, November 17th at 2 p.m. will be our Tea Talks featuring Dr. Saul Miller, who's a sports psychologist. And so we'll be talking about how our thoughts, images, and feelings can give us more ease, success, and well-being. So it should be an interesting and helpful talk for everyone. And then on Monday, November 18th at 7 p.m. will be the next Sisterhood Book Club. That'll be on Zoom, reading The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I just got the copy from Lorraine, so I'll try to read it this weekend, and I think I'm passing on to share afterwards. So, if you need it after that, we'll see how far we can pass it along. And then later in the month, on Saturday, November 23rd at 5:30, we're going to be having a Havdalah and games night. So we'll have Havdalah at 5:30, followed by board games and party games. So we'll have some games for groups if you want to do that, as well as doing a sort of separate activity for teens. So if you know any Jewish teens in the area, we'll have Shayla Brewer, who's working in Vancouver, helping to start up some more Jewish youth groups to help guide that. And then on Sunday, November 24th at 11 a.m., we'll have the More Than 8 Candles, a session to prepare your family for Hanukkah. So for parents and grandparents of young kids, or parents who need to do presentations in schools and daycares, about how to make Hanukkah more meaningful, understanding the themes of the holidays, and how we're able to make it more engaging for children of all ages. And then Monday, December 2nd at 7 p.m. is going to be the next Zoom sisterhood session about Jewish influence on American music, looking at Christmas carols. So with Alan Cheskis, the person from Toronto who's been doing this for the last few years. So with that, I'll wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And as we are now in our winter time, we'll continue with our Kiddush. So let me just open this up. יום השישי, ויאכלו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויאכל העולמים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי פה שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קדשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו. בשבת קודשו באהבה ורצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי פנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. So I'll step aside to wash my hands. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining.